We continue to track dangerous Hurricane Melissa, one of the 10 strongest Atlantic hurricanes on record, now closing in on the southwestern coast of Jamaica as a powerful Category 5 hurricane. Landfall expected before lunchtime here in Jamaica, and the storm, unfortunately, has not shown signs that it will weaken very much or really at all before the storm makes landfall. This video will explain what's going on this morning, how the track has adjusted, and who else will be at risk as the storm continues to accelerate and move off to the northeast, leaving the Caribbean Sea and moving into the southwestern Atlantic for the rest of the week. Let's take a look at the satellite first. Here's a look from Tropical Tidbits at the current infrared satellite. This is Hurricane Melissa. Not an extremely large hurricane, but a very powerful one near the center, with a very well-defined eye and very strong winds being measured by Hurricane Hunter aircraft. There is a trough over the southeastern United States responsible for a lot of rain and wind on the east coast here around the Carolinas. That is now finally pulling the storm northward. It's been messing around for a few days in the Caribbean Sea over very hot water, which has allowed it to gain the strength that it has. That trough is now lifting it away, so it will not be a threat to the eastern coast of the United States. Eventually, it may have some effect on Atlantic Canada towards the end of the week and weekend. But really, the only places that need to be super concerned are across the central Caribbean, the Bahamas, and Bermuda at this point. Elsewhere in the tropics, we don't really have anything to be super concerned with in the Atlantic basin. No development expected from thunderstorms over the East Atlantic and a non-tropical low, which will be heading into Western Europe. The Gulf remains quiet. And for the time being, I don't think we're going to be dealing with any named storms in the Gulf at this time. Here's a look at the latest statistics from the Hurricane Center. You'll see the winds remain at 175 miles per hour. We do have aircraft that will be getting into the storm. I may be able to have an update on what they measure before I'm done with this video. But the storm is now beginning to pick up some speed, moving northeast at 7 miles per hour. The location as of 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Jamaica time, is 17.5 degrees north and 78.1 degrees west, moving northeast at up to 7 miles per hour. So now we're finally getting a jog going. The minimum central pressure, 901 millibars, that continued to drop during the night and probably has leveled off. But that moves a storm up to about as strong as Camille and Katrina, which were extreme storms in the Gulf of America or Mexico, I guess Mexico at the time, and just below Hurricane Allen. And you'll remember Hurricane Milton, another powerful M storm last year in the southern Gulf, almost as strong as that storm. So we're basically in uncharted territory at this point. The only storms that have been stronger in this part of the globe were Wilma and Gilbert in the Caribbean Sea. Everything else you see here, aside from Hurricane Mitch, were basically in the Gulf. So Wilma was not this strong when it hit the Yucatan. Gilbert was not quite this strong when it hit the Yucatan. And Milton was in the Gulf and that weekend before hitting Florida. So as far as a landfalling hurricane, you don't really see them get this much stronger aside from the Labor Day hurricane back in 1935. A current look right now shows that the storm is 55 miles southeast of Negril in Jamaica. It's about 45 miles away from the coast. The eye wall will be moving on shore here in a couple of hours. We do have hurricane warnings in effect for the entire island of Jamaica. The majority of the island will experience at least hurricane force wind gusts. There may be a few places that could get lucky and miss the worst of the wind. It is a pretty big storm, but there will probably be a few locations that end up just below that hurricane intensity. And I would think probably the far eastern portion of the island and quite possibly the far northwestern tip. But because there's still just a tiny bit of uncertainty and a wobble left or right could change that, the hurricane warning remains in effect. We don't want to take any chances at this point. For Cuba, the eastern provinces of Granma, Santiago de Cuba, Guantanamo, and Holguin are under a hurricane warning as well. The southeastern and central Bahamas are under a hurricane warning. And we do have a hurricane watch for the Turks and Caicos Islands. We still have a tropical storm warning in effect for Haiti. And the folks in Haiti, I know we haven't talked about Haiti a lot. They've had flooding. It's been extreme. But Haiti's been under a tropical storm warning going all the way back to Friday. So we're on day 5 now of a tropical storm warning for Haiti. And the northwestern portion of Haiti joined the club, but southwestern Haiti has been under that warning now for 5 days. Just west of the hurricane warning in Cuba, we have a tropical storm warning for the Cuban province of Las Tunas. And we also have a tropical storm warning for Turks and Caicos Islands. There's a possibility that could be upgraded to a hurricane warning. Down the road, we may have a hurricane watch for Bermuda, and that could be issued some point later on tomorrow if the current track holds. Here's a look at a still image of our hurricane, indicating it's not massive, but the storm is certainly very well structured here and very intense near the center. You see on here the satellite image actually would make you think the storm is even stronger than what the aircraft have been measuring, but nonetheless, one of the strongest storms you're going to see in the Atlantic basin ever, and even worldwide, probably our strongest storm of the year. And it is narrowing down on the coast here of southwestern Jamaica. This image was taken at about 7 o'clock Jamaican time. And a closer view indicates that there's a lot of lightning going on around the eye wall, indicating a very healthy core. There's really no chance this storm is going to lose much punch before it comes inland. The only thing that will weaken it at this point will be the fact that it is going to be spending time over land, and it will go over mountains, and that will eventually start to disrupt the core of the storm and allow it to start to weaken. Also, something that we see here are the incredible gravity waves. Those are these little horizontal and vertical lines. You see these waves right here, indicating just tremendous amount of heat being released into the atmosphere and incredible amounts of energy being released into the atmosphere from this storm. So this is nature's powerhouse here. Radar imagery from Jamaica. I can't get the loop to go. I think I don't know if I'm being throttled or just it's overwhelmed, probably a combination of the two. But earlier on, we see that there's no disruption to the eye here. The storm getting very close to making landfall. The coast of Jamaica here is right about, oops, I'm trying to draw on the map, right about here. So we are seeing hurricane force winds with this band of rain that are just now pushing on shore as you're probably watching this video, just as it's coming out. And we do see bands of heavy rain that are now lifting north and east of Kingston. There's a quick chance that one of these could spin up a brief tornado. We don't typically see something like that in the Caribbean. That's usually a United States or a mid-latitude thing. But because the system has a jet stream that's farther south, we're later in the season, and we do have some dry air mixing in, especially in the center of the storm, but just a very sheared environment just north here. You know, that's not something we can totally rule out at this point. However, we're not going to see a major tornado outbreak. The bigger concern is the amount of rain that continues to fall and the amount of wind and the amount of storm surge that continues to lash the island here with these bands of heavy rain. And we're going to start to see that heavy rain getting ready to hit portions of southern Cuba as the afternoon wears on. You see the mountains here on the northern portion of the screen. When this rain starts hitting this portion of eastern Cuba, just to the west of Santiago de Cuba, we are going to see extreme amounts of rain picking up as the afternoon wears on as well. So I don't want to ignore our friends here in Cuba. Here's a look at the visible image, and just a very tremendously bad looking scenario. Either way you look at it, the eye is continuing to pick up a little bit of speed now as it nears closer and closer to the coast of Jamaica. It is getting very close to this landfall. You see the gravity waves. You see the stadium effect. You see everything you would see in a textbook Category 5 hurricane at this point. There's really nothing more I can say other than just a jaw-dropping look at the satellite at this point. And here's a look at the infrared. And we're just not seeing anything as far as any warming of the clouds or any way that the center of the storm is going to go away anytime soon. We see a little bit of wobble left and right, but really that's about it. Just an incredibly powerful hurricane at this time. If you take a look at the water vapor image, very little sign of wind shear that will get into this system. You actually, if you look at it, you can see the vertical hot towers just continuing to emanate around the system. Just a very healthy structure at this point. Incredible amounts of rain continuing to hit the western portion of Haiti, and we will see these spread onto Cuba as well. So it's not just a Jamaican storm, albeit Jamaica will be ground zero, but rain spreading well out of the center of this storm. We even see bands of rain beginning to start to move on to the southeastern portion of the Bahamas. And we're even seeing a little bit of rain still in areas that have been flooded on the northern tip of Colombia and in South America. Believe it or not, it's still been kind of wet down there. An interesting point I want to make here is that the water vapor temperature inside the eye of the hurricane has gone to a record high value of minus 2.9. We were watching this value very closely. Doesn't really mean a whole lot other than, we keep statistics in the meteorological world, and this number has never been reached. It indicates an extremely warm and dry eye, which is part of the reason our storm has been able to maintain its intensity. Usually a storm this strong goes through so many fluctuations where it will weaken and reform the eye, and you'll see the eye wall replace. This storm has not done that, at least as of now. And so this metric right here goes to show you that this storm is extremely resilient and just in an ideal location to be this strong. Now we're watching hurricane flights that are going in. In fact, I do have data coming in at this time, and this is not good. Unfortunately, the latest fix here, getting ready to go through the eye, is now measuring minimum central pressure in the 890s. So remember that chart that I just showed you here earlier in the video? We've only had a very small select handful of storms have a lower pressure. Milton last year was 897. We just saw the aircraft about a moment ago here at 7:40 Jamaica time, 8:40 Eastern. So we're now stronger than Milton and probably stronger than Rita was as well. Probably a top 3 or 4 storm at this time. Now, when I started my video, I hadn't seen that data. It literally just came in this very second. So the storm is not weakening. In fact, it may continue to strengthen before it hits. Just like we saw with Hurricane Michael on the Florida Panhandle, that sucker continued to strengthen and was up to a Category 5 in the very few minutes before it hit. That's about the worst case scenario for a storm to hit while it's strengthening. As far as the winds go, we're going to have to take a look at the data a little bit closer, but it does appear that the winds may still be coming up at this time. Trying to see if I can pull up the raw data to show you what we're seeing as far as aircraft measurements. Yeah, so we're seeing flight level winds of 179 knots potentially, or an estimate. So it's possible that the surface winds are up to 180 miles per hour at this time. It doesn't matter right now other than for the statistics book. Regardless, this is about as bad a storm as you're going to see. And certainly for Jamaica, we've never seen anything this bad. So at this point, let's get on with the track. I'll go and check back and see what we get from the Hurricane Center. But you can see there was a little bit of a wobble and stall last night, just a tiny little loop. But the storm has now bent back to the right and is on track. And in fact, it's actually come a little bit farther down the coast. Now we're looking at somewhere closer to Treasure Beach as potentially being ground zero. The eye may actually make landfall near Black River, but I would expect the worst wind and the worst surge will be just to the southeast, probably right near Treasure Beach, which is in the province of St. Catharines. The storm will be hitting as a Category 5. I think that goes without saying based on what I just saw from the recon. It will weaken as it comes inland, but there are mountains inland. And you get to places like Cockpit Country, and we could see 200-mile-per-hour winds on some of those mountains. Even though at ground level, we're probably going to see weakening. And by the time this comes out on the north side of Trelawney, it will be a weaker storm, probably a Category 4 by this evening. When you're in those mountains, those winds can be 10 to 20, maybe even 30% higher than what is measured down near the surface. In fact, aircraft are measuring those kind of winds now, and we're talking a few thousand feet up. So in the mountains, I would expect the same thing. So regardless, we're looking at incredible amounts of damage, especially across inland areas of Western Jamaica, not to include the storm surge that's going to hit these areas. Right now, the path does take this to the west of Kingston and surrounding areas. So the strongest winds will likely remain to the west of Kingston, but that does not mean we don't have storm surge hitting coastal areas. Does not mean we don't have a threat for flooding and a tornado or even enough winds to cause widespread power outages. This is still a humanitarian crisis. But the area that is going to be near and to the east of where the storm crosses will have the worst damage that will take years to rebuild from. It comes out likely between Montego Bay and Ocho Rios. Most likely that will be somewhere near Coral Spring or perhaps a little bit farther east. But unfortunately, all of these resorts on the North Coast are going to get slammed with incredible amounts of surge from the north as the storm exits and leaves towards the end of the afternoon and early evening. After that, the storm will likely weaken, but we are now predicting a Category 4 hurricane as it's hitting Cuba, not a Category 3. And if the storm wobbles to the right, those strongest winds could hit the second largest city in Cuba, that is Santiago de Cuba. Right now, probably staying safely west of Guantanamo, although hurricane conditions are still possible there. Probably tracking to the east of Holguin, I believe it's called. I apologize. I'm going to work on my geography here and my cultural understanding here, but unfortunately, I don't understand it all just at this point. And then as the storm moves out of the mountains of Cuba, it will weaken some. But again, this forecast could still be adjusted a little bit. And this is the very high end of the scale, category 2. If you're in the Bahamas, I would prepare for a category 3 hurricane based on what I just showed you with the recon coming in a little bit higher on that pressure. Now, right now, we're expecting the track of the storm to go over Crooked Island or just to the west of Crooked Island, but the rest of the southeast Bahamas are likely to have hurricane force winds as our wind field expands. Areas of the central Bahamas, it is going to be a close call, but the closer to the track we get, the higher the winds will be. And if this does shift a little farther to the east, which is a possibility, then on Great Anagua and perhaps in the Turks and Caicos Islands, especially the western portion of them, we could still have hurricane force winds or at least hurricane force wind gusts. Now, down the road, the spread of the track does grow. Bermuda is now looking like it will stay on the eastern side of the storm. That is a gradual shift from what we've seen. The official forecast track brings it to the west of the island during the overnight hours, Thursday night into Friday morning. This would be 3 a.m. Bermuda time on Friday as a high-end Category 1 storm. A direct hit is still possible. A stronger storm is still possible. It's also possible wind shear gets the best of this and it ends up being a little bit weaker, and it will not be one of the strongest storms in Bermuda history. But regardless, I would still be prepared in Bermuda. And I know those of you in Bermuda typically are prepared because you end up in the cone 4 or 5 times a year, at least certainly this season you have. Here's a look at the wind radii as of now, and you'll see the hurricane force winds don't extend over an extremely large area, but they are getting closer to the coast and will be moving on shore at least in the next hour or so as this video is recorded at 7:45. Tropical storm force winds have moved inland. They will continue to extend inland, and strong enough winds. I'm sorry, these yellows are, let's see if I can pull that up for you here. There we go. Yellows are 60 mile per hour winds. And this area is tropical storm force winds in the green. So the tropical storm force winds are not far from reaching Cuba. They may also clip the western portion of the Tiburon Peninsula here of western Haiti. Here's a look at the hurricane force wind swaths at this point. Again, you see the hard right pulling this in the southwestern Jamaica. Here's the most likely arrival times of the winds. I've already sort of talked about this. I wish I could zoom in a little bit. Maybe I can. Tough to read on the screen here with the kind of graphics the Hurricane Center puts out, but just know that we are going to see conditions going downhill this evening in Cuba and in western Haiti. We will see that Wednesday morning in the Bahamas, Wednesday evening across the central Bahamas, and then Thursday night across Bermuda, and potentially very late Friday night across the Avalon Peninsula of Newfoundland. Here's a look at our rain forecast. This is additional rain. And actually, let me update this to the latest graphic. This is on top of the last 3 to 5 days of rain. We could still see 8 more inches of rain in parts of Hispaniola on top of the 3 or 4 feet that has fallen in some areas. Jamaica, we've already seen a couple of feet in some mountainous areas. We could see a couple of feet more. Cuba, we are likely to see 1 to 2 feet in the mountains, and I would not be shocked if some of these numbers ended up over 30 inches as this storm is roaring in your direction. Fortunately, these numbers do come down when we get up into the Bahamas, but we could still see locally a foot or more of additional rain. Looking at the Google DeepMind, which so far has done the best job with this storm, we see that the spread starts to grow as this storm approaches Bermuda early in the morning on Friday. And the majority of the guidance is now west of Bermuda by about 50 to 150 miles, but we have some members that are still fairly close. We don't have a direct landfall in Nova Scotia, but we do have a couple of members getting close. Newfoundland, on the other hand, we've got about a 30% chance that the storm center could still pass over the eastern portion of Newfoundland. Something that we just need to keep in mind at this point. And it will be a larger storm. So even if the center of the track does not go over you, I do think impacts are certainly going to be possible. Here are the latest hurricane models. And again, we see that spread. The majority of the global models, though, are east of Newfoundland. So the Google DeepMind is off to the west of where the majority of the global models are. So we are going to have a split in the forecast that will need to be resolved. Here's a look at the halves model, which shows our storm, which again, it's actually not strong enough on the pressure, but has it making landfall at 10 to 11 a.m. Jamaican time, weakening as it moves over the island. And then it's actually back over water here at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. It'll be weaker by then, but you see the wind field actually starts to grow. And it's got more warm water to source it here as we get through the evening, even though the storm will be weakening, I believe, at that point, or in a steady state. It still could be a category 4, maybe even a higher end category 4 with that second landfall coming as we get into the overnight hours in Cuba, most likely between 2 and 5 a.m. After that, it only spends about 5 or 6 hours over Cuba. So about 4 hours over Jamaica and then 5 or 6 over Cuba. And then we're right back over water. And then we have a bigger growing storm, but one that will not be as intense at that point. Moving through Crooked Island during the late day hours here tomorrow, and then moving away from the Bahamas and substantially growing. The water temperatures are now cooler at this point, so the storm will unlikely be strengthening, but there will be an increase in wind shear, which could actually be favorable for this storm in that it actually ventilates it and gives it more outflow and gives it some space to grow, at least for a day or so. So in Bermuda, depending on how this tracks, we could end up seeing some fairly strong winds, maybe over 100 to 110 miles per hour. But if this trends more to the north and west of you, then those numbers could come down substantially as well. After that, you'll see the storm becomes post-tropical by the time we get to the weekend, and there's a big difference in where the model shows things. Here's a look at the halves model real quick, showing incredible amounts of rain through the day today, and then we will see things improving on the island of Jamaica tonight, going downhill at the same time in Cuba, and then improving in Cuba in the morning tomorrow, and then going downhill at the same time in the Bahamas, and then improving in the Bahamas late tomorrow night, early Thursday morning. And then you see the storm does take on the shape of a sheared cyclone. And this will not produce nearly as much rain for Bermuda due to the fact that it is going to be transitioning more towards a post-tropical storm at that point, more of a windstorm than anything else. And finally, a look at the wind forecast for Jamaica. Again, we're off the charts here as far as the wind goes, as much as 180 mile per hour wind gusts expected as the storm moves inland. I wouldn't be shocked if we even saw some 220 mile per hour wind gusts on the mountains here. This model can't even resolve those. For Kingston, we are likely to see near hurricane force wind gusts throughout the day today. East of Kingston, there'll be less. The far western side of Jamaica could escape winds under 90 miles per hour, maybe even under hurricane force, but it will be close. But where this tears across Jamaica, central and inland parishes here, about 4 or 5 parishes of Jamaica, are going to see widespread destruction with winds over 100 miles per hour, and in some cases, maybe getting over 200 miles per hour. Just amazingly jaw-dropping amounts of winds. For Cuba, you can see there is a potential for highly populated areas to get 120 to 130 mile per hour wind gusts as the storm is moving northeast. Even Guantanamo could see wind gusts over 100 miles per hour early in the morning tomorrow. And then as this storm moves towards the Turks and Caicos, we could see stronger tropical storm force winds, hurricane force winds over the southeastern Bahamas, perhaps as much as 120 miles per hour. And then we see the storm growing. And then as far as Bermuda goes, it's a matter of how close to the storm do we get things. Right now, the HAZ model says how close to the island the storm gets as far as the winds go. Right now, the model average is between 80 and 100 mile per hour wind gusts for Bermuda. We do have on some of our models, like the GFS, the potential for more. Depending on the track, you can see 113 mile per hour peak gust in Hamilton sometime late Thursday night, probably just before midnight. So this number could come down to as low as 60 or 70, or come up to as much as 120 miles per hour in Bermuda. Farther down the road, again, depending on how the system interacts with a front in Atlantic Canada, it's possible this could swing to the right and miss you. But if you're in Newfoundland right now, we have some models that show winds of as much as 140 to 150 kilometers per hour on the southern coast. Cape Race, 100 to 120 kilometers per hour. So I'd be prepared for power outages and certainly a burst of heavy rain as well. Looking farther out here, not much has changed in the long term. Multiple coastal storms for the eastern United States. This is an ugly weather pattern, inland snow. But as far as the tropics go, things are going to be fairly quiet after this, I believe. The one thing, though, I do want you to keep an eye on and again, the models differ on it, is that we may have a trough split here next week in the Gulf. I don't think anything tropical develops, but what may happen is the tail end of the second front to come through may get stuck in the Western Caribbean, and that could be a problem with lowering pressures and more imminently heavy rainfall for somebody in the Western Caribbean. I'm hoping it's not Jamaica, Cuba, or Haiti. That is a possibility, but Central America, we could be in for a localized flood if that is correct. Now, eventually it should dry out and be actually pretty decent for the southeastern United States, but it may take us until we get to closer to Veterans Day for that to happen. Here's a look at potential rainfall amounts in the wake of our storm. And you can see the latest run of the GFS, unfortunately, is dropping what amounts to another several inches in Jamaica and in portions of the Cayman Islands and Cuba. If correct, other models are farther west with a heavy rain and have several inches across Honduras and Costa Rica and Nicaragua and northern parts of Panama. So you can see there is another boundary that's stuck down in here. Tropical development chances are fairly low. The GFS has a few ensembles that show some gradual development. At this point, it's too early to get too carried away with those. GFS loves to show something like that. The Google DeepMind is not showing any development, at least over the next 15 days. So we'll keep an eye on that. We are going to check back on the recon to see what it's finding. And right now, it looks like the lowest central pressure is about 893 millibars, which again, referring to the chart here, puts us at the fourth strongest hurricane and only about 10 to 11 millibars away from Hurricane Wilma. Winds are probably about 180 miles per hour. Just an incredibly powerful hurricane at this time. So I'll have updates on my community about on my community post. If you have not subscribed, those will come to you there. You can also follow me on Facebook. I will continue to have updates throughout the day, and then another video at the usual time here, probably in the 5 o'clock hour Eastern time, with an update on any changes here to Hurricane Melissa. I appreciate you joining me here. I do want to close the video out, obviously, with some prayer for those that are going to be going through this tremendous, awful time here in Jamaica. Just know that I'm a Christian, and it does hurt my heart to see disasters like this. But I do want to turn to God and give him all the honor and glory, even though it can be difficult to do something like that. Psalm 46:1, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. And knowing Jesus, I know that there is still hope in the disasters that we go through in life. There is still joy despite the troubles that we face in our time here. But that has all been overcome. Jesus has overcome the world, and he can give you eternal salvation. He can give you mercy. He can give you love. He can give you things that no other human being can ever give you. And that is the good news that I wanted to share with you and to encourage you in. I do want to close out in a quick prayer for all of my friends here in the Caribbean Sea. Father God, we come to you here we're asking for miracles. We're asking for things that we just can't do. Lord, please be with all who are in the path of this storm. Please guide them. Please help them to see your providence and your mercy. Please protect those who are in the path of the storm. We know the storm cannot be stopped, Lord, but we know that you can help work through the many that are going to be impacted by the storm and those who come to respond to this disaster. Help those in Haiti, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Cuba, the Bahamas, Bermuda, and all else, and the folks who are going to be giving up time in their life to give aid to these folks. And Lord, we just thank you for all that you do every day. It's in your son's name that we pray. Amen. Thank you all for your time this morning. I hope everybody stays safe, and look for another video from me here towards the evening. God bless you.